I will tell anybody in leadership the key to success is hire people far more creative and smarter than you are.
Welcome to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc., where we feature experts in growth and brand visibility for law firms and architecture, engineering, and construction firms. Now, let's get started with the show.
Hi, everyone. I'm Michelle Calcode King. I'm the host of this podcast, and I'm also the principal and president of Reputation Inc. We're a public relations and content marketing agency for professional services firms, including architecture, engineering, and construction. To learn more, go to rep-inc, that's inc with a K.com. We're going to continue our series talking to architecture firm CMOs. And we're going to just kind of dive into a discussion with one of the leading CMOs at a regional firm about, what they're getting right, what are some of their challenges, how you go about building a thriving marketing department. So yeah, I'm excited to jump into that. So our guest today is Katie Robinson. She's the principal and chief marketing officer at LS3P, an architecture, interiors, and planning firm. Welcome to the show, Katie.
Thanks so much for having me, Michelle.
Yeah, and I called y'all a regional firm, but I don't know if that's correct. How would you describe the firm?
Absolutely. We are a regional firm. Some of our clients and projects take us beyond the Southeast, but our commitment truly is to this area, which is why our 12 offices are lumped throughout the Carolinas, Georgia, and Florida. So
Gotcha.
truly is where our heart lies.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, tell me a little bit about yourself first. Tell me, how'd you get into architecture marketing?
Sure. I fell into it by chance. I was living in Atlanta straight out of college and working for a publishing company, and it was a very exciting industry. It was the paper industry, so really good content. And they moved their operations over to Brussels, Belgium. So I was looking for a job, and
Yeah.
back then we didn't really have Google to search.
Mm-hmm.
So I got the phone book out and started and found architecture and found that a wonderful firm, TVS in Atlanta, was hiring for a marketing coordinator.
Hmm.
So I kind of stumbled upon it by chance and was lucky enough to get hired there and join their team. So that's how I kind of found my way into this industry.
Love it. And just kind of stuck. And I love telling that. I tell my employees some of those stories about before the internet, and I
Oh,
can tell there's always this look of disbelief on their
I
faces. So
know. It's like this just glaze, and it's like, "Really?"
uh-huh. Yeah, we had to do things differently back then.
Right.
So tell me about your department. I know I think I saw on your LinkedIn profile, you kind of talked about turning the marketing department into a dynamic creative agency. So if you can kind of describe for me the team you've built and the specialties that you have in-house.
Of course, this is my favorite thing to talk about because my team is amazing. I will tell anybody in leadership the key to success is hire people far more creative and smarter than you are, and then
100%.
you look really good.
Mhm.
And that's what we've built with the marketing team here. When I'll kind of back up, when I first started with the firm in 2004, we had two offices at the time, so we've grown from 2 to 12,
Wow.
and marketing existed, but we were really very reactive in
Mhm.
marketing. Um, you know, here's a proposal, we need to do it, and that was pretty much it. I think we
Mhm.
had a two-page website, no social media, obviously, then.
Wow. Yeah.
Um, so my career with LS3P has been interesting because none of the positions that I've been in existed before I was able to show there's a need for it. Let's
Yeah.
try it and
Mhm.
let's evolve. So what's happened is I've been able to also build different marketing positions along the way.
Yeah.
So we used to be very office centric, where there was a marketing individual. We called them coordinators at the time. We've since ditched that title because we don't like it. But in different offices, and they would basically do the responsive stuff, the proposals and interviews.
Mhm.
And then if there was an ad that needed to be done, we would throw that together. But there really wasn't a focus on building brand trust and brand awareness, or even proactive marketing in general. So we made a small step in around 2015 by putting together a communications team that
Mhm.
started to push some of these efforts. But honestly, it wasn't really until 2020 when we decided to make marketing a firm-wide team instead of office specific that we really saw a huge change.
Yeah.
And we did that in the beginning of 2020. The
Oh,
buy-in
wow.
wasn't great because the office
Mhm.
leadership was like, "This is my marketing person. I don't
Mm.
know." Then we all went home to work during the
Mhm.
pandemic.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, so it was actually perfect timing because
Yeah.
something we thought would take a year or so to get buy-in
Mhm.
had almost
Mhm.
immediate buy-in because your person wasn't local anymore
Right. Right. You kinda had to think more, less in that way. You had to
right.
yeah, yeah, put your framework that way. Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. And what we found was we had such great collaboration amongst our team members. We were able to put lean processes in place. So when you worked with anybody in marketing, it was this, you knew what to expect. It was the same process for everyone.
Mm.
And that also helps us jump in and help one another and pick up. You
Mhm.
know, if somebody gets pulled away for an emergency of any type, somebody can swoop in and help.
Got it. Mhm.
So we did that, and then it kind of helped us to escalate the offerings that we were able to do within marketing. So our group created sub teams. We have
Mhm.
individuals who were really passionate about video and podcast, individuals passionate about design awards submittals, individuals that really like to do booklets and layouts and story crafting, and things like that. So we developed these sub teams where our marketing specialists can jump in and out. And so they can
Yeah.
build their skills, they can do what they're passionate about, they can have a break from all of those responsive efforts, the churn and burn of our industry.
Right.
Um, and then it started escalating from there. We had an individual in the firm within the marketing team who was very interested in doing experiential graphic design.
Mm.
So now our department offers experiential graphics. So we're able to work with the practice team members, be a little bit billable, which is also nice.
Yeah.
And then
Neat.
from there, clients started approaching us saying, "Can you help with our brand?" And we're like,
Yeah.
"Yes, we would love to." So we've really started to model our team more as a creative
And it
agency
yeah.
rather than your typical architectural firm marketing
I
brand.
love that. Mhm.
Uh,
Yeah, I love that because marketing is becoming more complex and having the ability to access a variety of specialists, I'm sure, is incredibly valuable to your firm. Tell me about the role of thought leadership in your firm.
Thought leadership is, well, it's essential for actually both of my loves because I do lead the marketing group. My brain doesn't know boundaries, so the left side and right side just mush together a lot. So I also lead the knowledge management side
Okay,
of the
great.
group.
Yeah,
We have, you know, our foresight blog that we have on
I
our
saw that.
website. It's awesome. It's a great place where we display our thought leadership. And what's so unique about it is it's voices from all over our firm, from
Mm,
student interns all the way to the CEO. So that's kind of a really fun outlet that we have going on with our website. And right now, I would say, and this is probably not a challenge that's just for LS3P, but I think from our industry alone, is capturing that thought leadership,
mm,
especially from the individuals who are getting ready to start their next journey into retirement,
yeah.
and making sure that we can disseminate all of their knowledge and
Mm,
their expertise and not only being a leader, but how they put together a fee proposal for a client,
mm,
or wall sections, or the little things we don't think to ask people.
yeah.
So how do we, as the knowledge management team, extract that knowledge, and then how do we, as the marketing team, communicate that internally as well as externally?
Yeah.
So that's kind of the balance that we find ourselves in right now. And I know it's something that a lot of firms within our industry and other industries are looking at as people start looking into retirement.
100%. And yeah, the two go really hand in hand. And I love that you use that term knowledge extraction. I use that all the time because it's basically what we're doing, right? We're really kind of pulling knowledge out of these experts' brains. And then as marketers, we think, okay, what can I do with all this? But you've also got that dual approach of, just setting the firm up for the future. So yeah, fascinating. I also saw that you guys have a podcast. Tell me a little bit about that.
We do. We do. We have a podcast that recently launched.
Oh, cool.
I was just joking to our fantastic marketing director, Meredith Ray, how I have not been a guest on the podcast yet. But it's okay. She
Uh,
assures me that I will be invited.
uh,
But our podcast is called Human Scale.
yeah.
And it's really fun because it's where we sit down with any and all members of L3P and we talk about the different facets of what we do, how we do it, but more importantly, who we are as humans. So
Mm,
you get a little bit of what they're doing in their professional life, but you get a whole lot of what makes them who they are.
yeah.
So it's incredibly fun. Meredith, who I mentioned, hosts it along with one of our practice team members, Patrick Cooley, and they have such a fun dynamic together as well. So I believe we have 3 external episodes right now, and we've recorded our 4th right now. So it's really fun, and it's as you know from this, it is such a great way to connect with people.
It really is. Yeah. I've made so many connections and I position it when I talk to clients about it is it's a new way of networking and making relationships. It's just so focused. There's so many benefits you get from it. But you have a focused conversation versus that, happy hour or networking event where you might not get to have that kind of deep dive with someone. You really get to do that in a podcast in a way that I'm not sure you could do in any other way. And it just helps so much with the way people consume media nowadays. And as marketers, we're always looking to repurpose content, and it's just such a great tool for that, for generating that content. One of the challenges we run up against is, especially in a professional services firm, and the reason I transition to this, because I think podcasts are a great way to do it, is getting your busy architects. So these are the fee earners. These are people that, are billing clients who participate and share their knowledge and be part of the thought leadership. What have you found some ways to kind of engage them and that kind of gets them involved in ways that are integrate with their work life well?
Mhm. So this is like the $1,000,000 question, right?
Yeah,
If
I know,
anybody
right?
had an easy button for this, they would be set for
Yeah.
life. I will say we're a participant of the Large Firm Roundtable through the American
Mhm.
Institute of Architects, and I serve on the marketing subcommittee of that group. This is a
Yeah.
conversation we have all the time
Yeah.
amongst my peers in other large
Mhm.
firms. And it's the hard one, because
Yeah.
you do need the practice team members. And
Mhm.
it's not only that you need their time for the proactive stuff and to do things like podcasts, maybe some videos and things like that. You need their time for the responsive stuff, like craft
Yeah.
letters and scopes of work for projects and pursuits. So it's a delicate balance. I think what we've been able to do really successfully is the fact that, as I mentioned before, we do have processes in place.
Yeah.
um, we also have a lot of pre-existing information that we can pull from, a really
Mm.
extensive text library, for example. So when we do need to engage the expertise of some of our practice team members, they're not starting from scratch. We're giving them something. I think also remembering that it doesn't necessarily have to be so polished. And I
Yeah.
think we are I mean, we want everything to be perfect. We're perfectionists in
Yeah.
marketing. But, you know, having just a casual conversation like we're having right now that you can record and then extract tidbits from later is fine. It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be set up in a studio somewhere with perfect lighting and perfect sound and everything. But taking those opportunities to have just those casual connections with some of our subject matter experts, and then taking it and saying, okay, what can we do with it? You
Yeah.
know, how much you take a little bit and make a lot,
Yep.
what
Hmm.
little tidbits can we pull? Is there a foresight article in this? Is there maybe an extended podcast in this subject? Maybe we can just write a social media blog
Yeah.
on the content, or is it just internal? So
Fantastic.
trying to
Hmm.
make a lot from a little definitely
Hmm.
helps. Uh,
Hmm.
I think another thing that is really important to do is explain the why to the
Hmm.
practice team members and the billable folks of why we're doing this.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of times the reason we're asking for their expertise is because we want to position them to be speakers at industry conferences or conferences our clients are attending. We want to help get them published.
Mm.
So essentially, we want to help you advance in your career,
Yeah.
but you got to help us by
Hmm.
telling
Right.
us what you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, you're speaking my language with all that. I think especially with the AI, emergence, I think the more human we can get, the better. People are going to be craving that more and more. So, when you're talking about it, doesn't have to be polished. It can be this kind of conversation. That's what I love about podcasting. There's not this pressure. There's not a hey, write an article, that
Right.
looms over your head. It's really sitting down and talking about things for a half an hour. But I do think we talk a lot about the skill set of knowledge extraction. That is a real skill set that I'm sure your team has. And that's not, we shouldn't overlook that that's a real key. Like you said, things like showing them that you're not asking them the same information twice. You've
Right.
done your homework, you're repurposing it, educating them, all those things. So I love that. You also talked, the other thing I want to make sure and ask, because you said a vital aspect, this is in your bio, is the firm's custom dashboard that serves as the communications and data hub for the firm.
Mhm.
Tell me a little bit about that.
A long time ago, we developed a LS3P dashboard. And essentially, we did this because at the time, there was not an internet solution that we
Mm,
felt really served our needs in terms of being a one stop shop for resources, but
yeah.
also allowing us to communicate with one another and share the knowledge that we were collecting. So we created our own. Essentially, the benefit that came from that is it really helped to propel our knowledge management efforts within the
Mm,
firm. Because if you create something like that, you better have content for it, or it's just going to become static.
yeah.
So for a number of years, our dashboard has been amazing. We're actually in the process of converting to a new internet system that is developed for our industry, and we're really
Yeah.
excited about that. But again, what the dashboard taught us is the importance of things like strategic reporting
Right.
in order to make really sound decisions about the future of our firm.
Mm,
Sharing resources like codes. Where do I go to find codes? Well, you go here.
yeah.
So people aren't spending their time reinventing the wheel over and over. Um, and then we have a lot of project data that we have gathered through our data manager program, and it needed a place. We put it in our database, but we needed a place to be able to kind of disseminate it. And what does this really mean? You know,
Yeah.
um,
Hmm.
so we were able to put, and again, that's where I'm able to totally geek out on all of the knowledge management, data, and analytics side, but then also
Hmm.
say, okay, we're sending this to a group of creatives. It,
Right.
it needs to be marketed in a way that creative individuals are going to be able to absorb it.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think that becomes even more important as a lot of people are remote, with the inundation of information nowadays, you kind of you have to take information, make it very digestible for really anyone, make it very visual. So that's critical. I'd like to talk about architecture as a whole, architecture marketing as a whole. So you've been in this for a long time. What would have been the big changes and what changes are you kind of looking toward or
Sure.
anticipating?
Yes. So I would say proposals are getting more complex.
Yeah.
The questions that they ask are
Mm.
getting a little bit more difficult to answer. Um, a lot of it is data based, which is nice,
Mhm.
to be able to have that at our fingertips. Um, Competition is also a lot steeper, and especially in the Southeast. We have
Yeah.
a lot of the national firms making their way into our backyards, which is great. We partner with them often. We love them,
Mhm.
but
Mhm.
it still is a different level of competition. Um,
Sure.
the benefit of that is it's allowed us to see we can do this. We can compete with these national firms. We can step up our game.
Yeah.
It's taught us the importance of brand awareness, but also the importance of relationships. And we've developed those among 60 years of business.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say, from a responsive effort, it is just the complexity and
Mm.
the amounts of efforts that we're chasing.
Yeah.
From a proactive, social media is all the rage still.
Mhm.
It's not going to go away. Um,
Mhm.
and it's really been fun to watch, especially over the past 5 years or so, um, how our social media presence is so much more targeted. We have an external engagement sub team. They are fantastic at figuring out which type of posts are going to get the most engagement and reach the
Yeah.
most people. But they look at it not only from a reaching the clients, but reaching possible recruits and future team members, which is just
Mm.
as important. Um, so it's really interesting to see the role that social media is playing um, in our industry. And obviously, you've hit the nail on the head. Things like podcasts are just such a thing that if you would have asked me even just 2 years ago, would we be doing this to help advance marketing in our industry? I would say no,
I
absolutely
know, right? Yeah, I
no.
resisted it for a while too.
Yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah. Uh-huh.
yeah. So I think that by embracing the trends, embracing technology, we are able to advance our
Mhm.
industry in terms
Mhm.
of marketing. What I hope to see more firms, and I think a lot of firms are going in this direction, um, what I would love to see them promote a little bit more in terms of marketing is also the importance of career advancement for
Mm.
the marketing team members.
Mm.
Because while we have chosen to be in the architecture industry under that umbrella, I think a lot of firms don't really think, "Oh, yeah, they're building
Yeah.
their careers too. So maybe
Yeah.
there should be some paths and options for them." Um,
Mm.
so I would love that thinking to twist a little bit, and it's beyond marketing. You're talking about your HR, your technology teams, your
Right.
finance teams,
Yeah.
everybody who works behind the scenes.
Mhm.
It is really important to advocate for them and remember that we're growing our careers here too.
Yeah. There's a woman in the legal industry who runs a recruiting firm, and she coined this term called revenue enablers. So she calls marketers revenue enablers. And I thought that's so smart because her point was that, while the marketing people within professional services firms might not be billing and generating revenue, they're making that possible and they're supporting it. And so it's such a critical function. And I love that framing of the issue because I think, yeah, that marketing people can often feel, less than or treated less than, or just not, like you said, that you're within a firm where that career path isn't as defined. So
Mhm.
I love to hear that. Do you see any big trend on the horizon that you guys are looking at and saying, oh, we got to keep an eye on that?
Well, I'll tell you something we need to keep an eye on. Whether it's a good one or a bad one, I don't know, but that's AI.
Yeah.
Um, I
Felt
think
like it came out of nowhere, right? Yeah. Uh-huh.
every industry will say the same thing.
Mhm.
I mean, just small things like Chat GPT. It's
Mhm.
very interesting and incredibly terrifying all at once.
Mhm.
You spoke earlier about the still the desire for that human connection.
Mhm.
And my hope is that still wins out in the end. Although
Yeah.
how we're approaching it is try not to be quite so terrified of it
Mhm.
coming, but
Mhm.
embrace it without letting it take over our
Mhm.
relationships.
Yeah, we're doing the same. We're dipping our toe. We're kind of, seeing where it can be valuable. Yeah, there's just so many concerns about confidentiality and all of this. Is just a lot to get your head around. But I'm the same way. You've got to embrace it. You got to see where it's going to fit. I mean, people were saying the same about social media and Google,
Right.
20 years ago, so, or whenever. I think social media is actually younger than that. So, but yeah, now look, it's just a part of our daily lives and just a part of how we work. So, yeah, I think it's just kind of, we've all got to figure this new one out. I mean, it keeps us on our toes. Before we end, and these always go a lot quicker than I thought, is there anything that you think, anything you'd like to share, an important lesson you hope our listeners take away, or anything we've talked about that you'd like that we haven't touched on that you'd like to share? I know it's a big question, but I always like to
Important lesson.
leave on it. Yeah,
I would say, so I can share one of the biggest lessons that I've learned,
I would love
just
that.
in
Yeah.
not only this industry, but I think in life in general is the importance of observing and asking questions.
Mm,
And I think a lot of times, especially as we're coming up in our career, um, a lot of individuals see asking questions as a weakness,
mhm.
but it is such a tremendous strength. And to be able to really sit back, observe what people are doing, and then asking just really specific questions about what they're doing, how did they get here, it's so important. I tell individuals too, if you're in the office and not working remote, take your headset off, listen,
Yeah.
and listen
Mhm.
to conversations that are going on around you because you can learn so much.
Yeah.
Um, when I first started here, about a year and a half after I started, I had a really great opportunity because our CEO at the time, Tom Penny, needed some graphic assistance for an upcoming internal meeting with the shareholders. And I thought that was so cool. Here I was, I'm new to the firm and I get to see what the shareholders are talking about. It was really interesting. And so I started working side by side with Tom on that, as well as in other internal meetings. And I was absorbing all of the things that they were saying, but then I was questioning it. I was talking to our finance person about the financials because, I had 3 whole classes in accounting. So
Right.
obviously I knew what
Right.
I was doing. But just understanding, what is a utilization rate? Why does it matter? And, asking all of these questions that had nothing to do with marketing. But I was able to learn so much about our industry and how business worked,
Yeah.
that when I did start to really build in my career, I was able to connect them and say, okay, well, marketing can actually help you, finance group, because you're having to explain finances to a bunch of creative people.
Right.
Let us help you with that. So I would say just that was probably the biggest thing that I learned, was that asking questions is not a sign of weakness. Vulnerability isn't a sign of weakness. And that's the way that you can truly grow as a person and also grow in your career.
That's really important advice. It's something I tell my team all the time too, especially when you work in these expertise driven industries. You're working with people who have very deep knowledge in a particular area. So it's really critical that you ask questions, because the more you know about their challenges and their knowledge, the better you are as a marketer. So agree with that 100%. Well, thank you for sharing that. And thank you for joining us. So we've been talking to Katie Robinson of CP3PO or no, just kidding, LS3P. And Katie, if people wanted to connect with you, what's the best way for them to do so?
Sure. They can send me an email. It's just katierobinson@ls3p.com. So it's pretty easy. Also, LinkedIn, use social media.
Yes. Good one. All right. Well, thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Spill the Ink, a podcast by Reputation Inc. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.